Sondu tengi ba sondu tamshi gi lerim sumba jushi phimi rawan thabje tho nashinam gi lenge yiga ni gi delam teshin shuduk tha gelji delam tho tamshi nange shiye azu gi tamshi nange thangbo di kunju domala re ani khora phi like che shisu arila nepe chidu ani khon la nidong chirku dawanga be nangla New York Emmy Award in the category of Best Informational Film for Workers' Rights Shebe Sengda Jitobdu Sangmacha Daruna. Kone New York City Department of Records Nangla Lemi Ginzingi Chale Nayo Bata Tade Chala University of Virginia Nangla Chuluk Ribe Lobjo Janshindu Kujutumla Uzunavana.
Samdu lotesh tele, tering etamshe di ingekela shuchopachi. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by thanking the Honorable Sikyon Lobsan Sangela, Kungo Sonam Takpula, the organizing team of the 550 Forum, and the Central Tibetan Administration for inviting me to speak here today, and you, the audience, for traveling from far and near to collaborate on a collective vision for Tibet and Tibetans. I'm honored and humbled to be here. When I first heard the topic, Young Voices in the Tibetan Freedom Movement, Communication, Advocacy, and International Relations, I was reflective. For me, those young voices have been exemplified by some inspiring Tibetan youth leaders, one of whom is here amongst us, my co-panelist, Sonam Chola. I wondered what I could contribute that could be useful. I then dug into my academic training in international relations, experience in media communications, developing civic-focused films, interactive web learning platforms, and organizing in the immigrant rights space in New York City to come up with 4 concepts or topics that I present to you today for further reflection and discussion. These 4 topics are centered around an international relations theoretical framework defining exiles and diasporas. I will not be addressing the films I created and what may have actually resulted in the invitation, as I anticipate it being raised in a Q&A session afterwards, but I think the 4 points that I'm going to talk about will be emblematic of it. We tend to conflate our understanding of exiles and diasporas, but Yossi Shine, one of the foremost theorists studying exiles and diasporas, identifies them as distinctly different in that, although both seek to influence policies in their homeland, only the exile seeks repatriation. This difference is important as we envision the next 50 years of the movement, especially as younger Tibetans move into or are born in Western countries where they have birthright citizenship or otherwise naturalized, but still identify as Tibetans. This forum in some ways is a recognition of that growing younger diaspora and an effort to encourage these young Tibetans with multiplicity of identities to embrace leadership roles in their country of citizenship while embracing their Tibetan heritage and advocate for Tibet. They could be Tibetan and something else, and yet as professionals, elected officials, government workers, or even service workers, advocate for Tibetan people, language, religion, country, and community. Within this theoretical framework and in the context of advocacy, the first point I would like to make is around intentionally cultivating a plurality of leadership within the Central Tibetan Administration and also in the larger Tibetan movement. Tibetan democracy is a precious gift to all of us from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It is still young, and as is the nature of democracy, it is sometimes chaotic. No matter what kind of democracy we adapt to as it grows, representational, multi-party, constitutional, or perhaps a democracy with Buddhist values, a distinctly Tibetan democracy, I think we have to embrace that democracy is by its nature chaotic. It seeks plurality of opinion and thoughts and encourages dialogue and communication. Noisy democracy is in fact a thriving democracy. Embracing this, we would do well by cultivating leadership on all fronts, so that when there is a change in power, or we are ready to elect a new prime minister or a new chitu, there is a core group of policy mongers, intellectuals, practitioners with international and national exposure that can carry on CTA's core mission effectively. That is not to say that such a core does not exist. It does. We have met and heard from a lot of them today and yesterday, but rather to state that the core could be further strengthened. Today, a lot of young Tibetans aspire to becoming the next Sikyon. or the next Tibetan leader. And that is because of the leadership of our current Sikyong and such leaders like Thardon Sharling. They have been fierce, exemplary. But we need a lot more Thardon Sharlings, a lot more Tendors, a lot more Lobsang Sanghes, speaking, engaging, collaborating within and outside the Tibetan sphere. We often reference the Indian independence movement in our own, but sometimes forget that the movement was often chaotic, and as Thinley Chukila pointed out, quite long. Yet it was powerful because it had a plurality of leadership and a plurality of thought, from Mahatma Gandhi, Ambedkar, and Nehru to revolutionaries like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bhagat Singh, Sarojini Naidu, and poets and artists like Tagore. My second point references communication and advocacy, and it is around intentionally developing an expansive narrative or view about who is a Tibetan and what constitutes the Tibetan diaspora. Kelsang Kandela and some of the panelists in the last session talked about some of this, and I want to present to you some additional concepts that I hope you will find useful for further discussion. To the second point of intentionally developing an expansive view of the Tibetan people, I want to add folding into the political vision building and conversation those culturally Tibetan communities from the Himalayan region who are already ardent followers of Tibetan Buddhism. This is strategic and beneficial to the movement. It is beneficial because a movement like ours needs a greater populace in free nations who can advocate for the cause, but also more people who are engaged. Such an expansive view may be contentious in some conservative circles, but it is important to remember that as people of an occupied nation, it is to our disadvantage if we embrace Harry Potter-style discussion of Tibetans as purebloods or half-bloods. The most established diaspora community, and one we reference too often, is the Jewish community. Israel's citizenship laws, quite controversial at times, state that anyone whose mother is Jewish is also Jewish, but also recognizes those who convert to Judaism. Although some of these laws are controversial, as I said, I raise it here to stipulate about advantages of adopting an expansive view of who is a Tibetan or who is in the Tibetan diaspora, because that will ultimately benefit the movement in the long run. In both Nepal, where I grew up, and New York now, I have met many Tibetans from the Himalayan region who are nationally Nepalese, but culturally identify as Tibetans. I will give you an example to demonstrate why this is so powerful. In 2012, when I was in graduate school, a fellow student of mine traveled to Dolpo for research and spoke about a re-education program that had occurred the year that she was there. Every 12 years in Dolpo, they have a big Bompo festival. And that year in particular, the Nepali government had sponsored the festival with one intention: to re-educate the Dolpos near Tibet's borders that they are not Tibetan, but are in fact Nepali. The Honorable Sikyong yesterday in his address spoke about the erosion of Tibet and Tibetans in these regions. I think that erosion can be effectively stopped if we engage with the Himalayan communities politically and include them in the Tibetan diaspora, such that even when Nepal makes policies that harm Tibetan people, the greater Tibetan diaspora acts as a buffer, a protectorate to counter these policies. This expansive view of the Tibetan diaspora needs to be intentional and may mean educating and informing our own exile and diaspora populace. The third point references international relations and soft power, and it is around institutions. As Tibetans, we are good at building institutions. That is one of the reasons why our communities have done in various places around the world, whether it is government organizations like the Office of Tibet or self-led, such as the Tibetan community of Newark and New Jersey, where I come from. We have built community halls, temples, monasteries, small businesses, and effectively established our roots in various nations. That is key to survival. We are great at it. But what we can work towards is building more resilient institutions. And that is another place where an expansive diaspora is beneficial. It may serve well for some of our non-government organizations abroad and even large monastic institutions to adjust their governing practices to reflect local laws, whether it is in accounting, finance, governance. Such place-based intentional changes will yield legitimacy for the organization in the host nation, but also strengthen our communities. In terms of institutional sustainability, some of the recommendations of the last conference are quite illuminating, where they talk about CTA as not just an NGO, but a government in waiting. I would argue that CTA in practice is already a state, with most of the demarcations of a state, albeit lacking a territorial hold. Embracing itself as such will make CTA bolder and more effective for Tibetans both in Tibet and outside. To the same point, I think we in the Tibetan community would benefit by including in our vision building efforts privately owned or profit-driven Tibetan companies and institutions. Sometimes we mistakenly look at them as competitors rather than what they truly are, allies. And that is because we think the Tibetan narrative and who constructs that narrative is singular. And again, this is where the plurality of leadership and thought would be beneficial. My fourth point and final point is also encompassed in some of the recommendations of the last conference, expanding the number of external validators. For a long time, and for a good reason, our focus has been some Asian countries, America and Europe. These remain our key allies, and our allyship building efforts have been focused on them. But there is a need to expand our outreach to other countries we have historically not engaged with or engaged with in a limited way. The last conference recognized some countries in Africa. To these, I would add Latin American and Southeast Asian countries. We now have an office in Brazil, but we may do well by expanding to other key hubs such as Mexico. And then to wherever China has raised its political capital through investments, whether Africa or Southeast Asia, through other forms of institutional and community building efforts, especially as opening an ambassadorial office can be costly. In expanding external validators, pseudo-government organizations and nonprofits like the SFT, Tibetan Action Network, and others may prove to be helpful allies. I had a close friend I worked with at the mayor's office. She now works for Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She's a powerful Mexicana immigrant advocate. And you know what her first organizing effort was? Tibet. Tibet in high school through her local high school SFT chapter while she was undocumented. So when the Tibetan community in New York asked the Congresswoman to come to our community center, her district director already was aware of Tibet and Tibetans because of organizations like SFT. So strengthening these internal allyship to strategically expand external validators would be key to the next 50 years. I have so far addressed 4 topics: intentionally cultivating a plurality of leadership, intentionally expanding what and who constitutes a Tibetan diaspora, investing in sustainable institutions, and finally increasing the number of external validators through internal allyship. For my final statement, I want to leave you with something more personal and individual. There are many of us here today who are the first of many things. The first Tibetan someone ever met, the first Tibetan in their university or in their program, their workplace, their neighborhood, or perhaps even their adopted countries. Being the first sometimes yields a lot of pressure, but it is also an opportunity, a great responsibility. For me, this responsibility at times has meant being intentional about how I present myself and my values. When I struggle, I remember that we are strong, not because I am special, no, but because our cause is just, our fight is right. I'm proud to be a woman of color, an immigrant from a working class background, and these myriad identities make me a stronger, more resilient, and a more useful Tibetan. I'm sure you will hear over the next 3 days that the youth is the future. I disagree. Youth is not just the future. They are the now, the present. Every important political revolution in the world has been led by the youth. Be it the university students in Hong Kong today, the civil rights movement in the US, the Arab Spring, or the indigenous water rights activists in the US, youth are leading some of the most important movements of our time. So remember, every one of you here in the room is the now. And although the world may pit you against each other, and they sometimes will, each of you is enough, and each crucial to the movement. Thank you.
Tushina kujumala ani nganzuki tamshinan gingyu di stamsulare Kura geji pyorang zen lokru tsokpe legul ta tidagi ginzingi chale nang desha ani kura nidong chionga lo pyorang zen lokru tsokpa nang la lego zune ani legu mangbuji pewe nang ne shunge la shiwe gu ne shiwe to ne legu petang ko la ani sabti ya mangbu nang du ani kura la the Merced Social Justice Leadership Award sewe singda ya top du stamsula isruna
Samadashidalo ni goma zongponde ngama tera mixer ka tabdagwani chama cotton chess do samlayin tani parcher 가상이 샷살라다 nga pai goloyin tani de yen naujda gorket mangi aziz higmera so parcher gorke shana hechu kokimar tani tsingma dangche chatsuriyo so tarangi inge doshakiyen ko. Yeah, so again, thank you to all the organizers. I just want to mention that I'll be speaking in English today. I think my gorke is a little different than most folks are used to in this room. So, you know, yesterday when Sikyong Lobson Sangila said, right in front of our eyes, Tibet is disappearing, that really struck a chord with me. And I think in many ways, I agree. I think that process is currently happening. We are at a vital moment in the Tibetan movement. In schools, our history is not only being denied or erased, it is being falsely rewritten by the Chinese government and their mouthpieces, right? For so long, we've openly talked about, institutions, about world leaders, trading human rights, trading accountability, and the likes for, again, trade partnerships, for economic gain, for political power. But the challenge now also lies in us confronting the rising levels of censorship affecting public and academic discourse, or lack thereof. It lies in political alignment and other forms of soft power provided space by our very institutions in the so-called free world, right? So how many folks here are familiar with Confucius Institutes? Can I get a raise of hands? Yeah. So for those who are maybe a little unfamiliar, I'll just go through some of the basics. Confucius Institutes are essentially educational programs run by the Chinese government, right? The Chinese government, through their Ministry of Education, has this entity called Hanban. And the Hanban partners with institutions around the world to set up these, you know, Confucius Institutes and Confucius classrooms. And their stated aim is to promote Chinese language and culture. And I think everyone in this room is familiar enough to know that China is not always doing what they're saying that they're doing, right? Through these Confucius Institutes, what they're actually doing is they're censoring issues. They're censoring topics on Tibet, Taiwan, Hong Kong, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, on Tiananmen, right? And even worse than that, they're propagating and saying, you know, Tibet was always a part of China, or whatever other false history that they impose. China has made it clear what their intentions are, I think, sometimes when it comes to Confucius Institutes. And I just have a few quotes from their direct leaders that I just wanted to share with you. In 2007, the then head of propaganda for the Chinese Communist Party, Li Changchun, I might have gotten his name wrong, but described Confucius Institutes as, quote, an important part of China's overseas propaganda setup, unquote. Again, in 2010, Xu Lin, the Director General of the Hanban, an agency of the Ministry of Education, which oversees Confucius Institutes, said that, quote, Confucius Institutes are an important part of soft power because we want to expand our influences. We do not deny this, unquote. And then Chinese president at the time, Hu Jintao, endorsed Confucius Institutes as a way to, quote, cultivate and prepare a group or army of people to make sure the Chinese Communist Party will be in power in the future in China and increase our influence around the world, unquote. I mean, the official Chinese government website says that there are 500 Confucius Institutes around the world in over 100 different countries, and they aim to actually establish 1,000 by 2020. So 500 more possibly in the next year and a half. I just wanted to bring this up because the momentum against Confucius Institutes is growing, right? I want to take the United States as an example, not because I'm from there, but because the United States actually has more Confucius Institutes than about the next 8 countries combined. Currently, there are about 90 Confucius Institutes in the United States alone, and as of 2014, we've shut down 24 of them. Of these 24 shutdowns, yeah. Of these 24 shutdowns, 20 of them happened since 2018. In a year and a half, we've shut down 20 Confucius Institutes. We've seen congressional leadership against Confucius Institutes, including strong statements from representatives. And very importantly, we've also seen the passing of HR 5515, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2019, that includes a prohibition of funds for Chinese language instruction provided by Confucius Institute. Now, I want to make clear that these things happen not out of luck, but because of grassroots activism. Because people use their voice to speak out against CIs and demand that their leaders and decision makers, our representatives, make decisions based on what we want instead of what a foreign government is plotting or pressuring them to do. An example that I actually want to share, this past January, after months of grassroots campaigning and pressuring, UMass Boston shut down their CI. The university announced their decision to end their contract. And in order for this to happen, we had local community members, some of who are here, shout out to Olo and Kusang from Boston, students, alumni, faculty, supporters from not only the Boston area, but from around the world taking action. They organized protests, submitted letters, they created and signed petitions, and so much more. And I can tell you in complete confidence that academic freedom is at stake, right? But it is not too late. We can still create change. We cannot sit by expecting someone else to take on this fight for us. We have to take leadership. We have to put in the hard work. Things don't just happen. We have to make them happen, right? I think I've been really thinking about this conference and the very ideas that are being discussed here amongst all of us at this forum are in jeopardy of being silenced. And I believe we have a responsibility to uphold and further push the boundaries and the freedoms we currently enjoy. In China, we already have multiple generations of people who've grown up with the government's propaganda as history, right? How many of you know Chimilhamo's story? Yeah, maybe a few of you in the crowd, right? Chimilhamo was elected her university student body president, and then thousands of people, many of whom were international Chinese students, commented on her photos claiming things like Tibet has always been a part of China, or dismissing any human rights abuses in Tibet and other Chinese-occupied lands. And I want to bring this up because this is learned through the Chinese education system, right? These kind of historical, quote-unquote, historical facts on their part, right? The fact that they think Tibet has always been part of China. That is the same education system the teachers that are employed by Confucius Institutes from China to teach internationally in our schools have gone through. And that is the same education system these teachers will probably borrow, if not replicate, in their classrooms internationally. I mean, we have to be alarmed about this. China has always played the long game, as multiple people have mentioned here today. And this is just one card that they're playing against the international community. Confucius Institutes are just the tip of the iceberg, to be honest. And I feel, again, confident in saying that if we do not so much as embolden ourselves the way China has, we face losing freedom and democracy around the world. We've seen how China has pressured governments to turn a blind eye to their atrocities. We've seen how China has convinced companies that they must abide by their rules in order to make money or to do business, right? We've seen how China is aiming to change the conversations at the UN in their favor. They will not stop, and if we do not hold them accountable, it's hard to say what the outcome will be. Now, more than ever, we have to challenge the status quo. Awareness is not enough, but it is a pathway to action, and we need to take action for Tibet. We need to be proactive. We need to mobilize others to be proactive for Tibet. I know a couple folks in the crowd have been to SFT trainings or SFT events, and I know we talk a lot about like grassroots activism and grassroots action, right? And we have this one model where we talk about the 3 levels of engagement in grassroots activism, right? So recruitment, retention, activation. Maybe a couple here have heard about that, right? And when I was thinking about what young voices in the Tibetan freedom movement means, I thought a lot about all of us in this room here today. Each one of us, everyone, every Tibetan, whether actively or consciously participating, is part of the Tibetan freedom movement. Our mere existence, our perseverance, our resilience is part of the story of Tibet. And for every person, the acknowledgement of this responsibility comes differently, I think. For many of us, being Tibetan is an overwhelming part of our identity. We grew up going to protests, to teachings, to cultural events at our community center. I remember as a child knowing I was Tibetan, being proud as hell that I was Tibetan, but also observing the hardships that come with being Tibetan. In my family's case, separation from our loved ones inside of Tibet, but not quite putting two and two together, right? So for me, that moment came on one of my trips to Tibet. I was about 13 years old at the time, and that day my mom had given me and my best friend Wochinso some pocket change to go into town. We call it hanto. I think that's a Chinese word, I'm not sure. And we had just had lunch, and we went into the store that unknowingly was owned by a Chinese businessman. And again, I was 13 at the time and completely obsessed with stationery and pencils and pens. So I was at the front of the store sort of checking out, where they put all the valuables. And my friend just turned to me and said, "Oh, nga gyablo jumbuchayo sa tanyi drogin." Like, I'm gonna go look for the candies in the back. And the Chinese store owner, who had been standing obviously in his booth where the register is, where all of his expensive items is, left me there. And he started following my friend around the store. And it took me a second to sort of process what was going on. And then it sort of dawned on me that he was following her around the store merely because she was Tibetan, and he thought that she would steal something. And he had left me there because, maybe I look a little differently. I was definitely dressed in Western clothing. Maybe he thought I was Chinese. At one point, he did speak to me in Chinese, right? And at 13, that was one of the first times I had been directly sort of confronted with what racism meant inside of Tibet, right? And mind you, my best friend, she's a nun at Larungar, and I share that because she has always been that kind of person, the kind of person who puts others before themselves, the kind of person who cares about other people, who would never do anything, let alone steal something. So when she was essentially accused of that, I was so frustrated. I was still at the front of the store, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I remember just seeing all the shiny pencils and thinking, okay, let me grab one and run. So I did that. No, I really did that. And I wanted to share this story not because, I definitely don't condone stealing, and I was definitely disciplined by my parents and my mother afterwards. But I share this because I think what we are doing here today and the platform that many of us can create is a space in which you don't have to resort to stealing a pencil because you don't know what to do with all that intergenerational trauma or that frustration or that anger, right? We can create platforms not only for ourselves, but for generations to come, where we can talk about these issues, where we can help each other, right? And where we can actually take proactive action. So I just wanted to leave you with that story and say that, although there's a few of us on the stage today, I really believe that when we talk about young voices in the movement, it's all of us, and that we all have a voice to share, and we all have the capability of creating something bigger than just us, but that can benefit the community as a whole. Thank you.
Kuchinas namsula ani nganzugi tamshinangi sumbati yakla kunju dumarare ani kongki sadi lojo balukbi shijada ani jesu Canada la nebi chungsha ani Quran team gi chede lobjo twenje kasha ne ani Swiss kuzap twenje khandu domi toptan sembe deche na mixel kosha na ne ani logic ring chale na sha ani thekapsu khonda lero ne nyamrugi nyamde gezosu chapsi Jusur tundu wangela tha ani kyunsi penje remboche kharson chame tu song we kor surso ni koti shusha ani thabar kunjola ne Canada gi zugla khan tu phedeng ko la tamshe mangona wa mase ani nyechar Maharashtra National Law University nang tu tamshe nang sha
tuchina donzila Tomar dekar chetu chipgyur kyangwe jeju namba sungshi nanghe namba nga da ngapju shengen so charwa yongla jemin ki samdin tash dele shugyu thang deshin phegi nyati Tibettv gyu dekar gyangsi sikin yongla yang samdin tash dele shugyu yin kume u pemi diksu wo laksam nangda ki shabdek shushin yepar rangri chitso thang mirab gempa chö kabop chung yenyam Pemi dikzu ne gyumor rowa mi top tang ki lenden che mixte kyosha nangwa thang nyamte getso ki tingcha penden thang rowa mi top tang kor tamshi chagyu kukap chungwar ing tapane kadin ches shugyu Nyechar ngarangi agula tengjong songwa thang kongki dengyun kapar tang ne chana rangri chiso nang sosu shung tang miri la shabdek shugyu kokap top yoba di sonam chenpo re she song song Mirab gempa cho lapcha sung yoba nam mi gepe tsiksam mimpar konse mitse nang tongyong gi nyamnyu chenpo sa yoba thang konam pe peden che kule hajang chenpo kenyo 대충 안소 신기 남네 경 무티 냠니 미냠 근지 제거바디 신도 개천보인 대리 녜땀시 기주시디 랑리 지소 삼민발 게치 땡 캡겨 바텐 땀시디 인기 돈이 슈추브 치스쇼인
Gucci, Versace, Marriott, Mercedes-Benz, from the clothes that we wear to the hotels we stay at and the cars we drive, everybody's scared about hurting the Chinese people's feelings and forced to apologize when they recognize the territorial integrity of these regions under China's control, or even liking the simplest tweet about Tibet. This is no longer a David versus Goliath. This is Goliath versus Goliath. Some of the most powerful companies and some of the most economically advanced countries are kowtowing to the People's Republic of China. So the question is, how do we advocate for Tibet at such challenging times like this? One of the answers is the United Nations. As we all know, the Chinese government refuses to hold any official dialogues with the Tibetan leadership. But our advocacy and our work at the UN actually makes the Chinese government talk. We're engaging in dialogue there. I'll give you an example. Recently, when we held a side event on the Panchen Lama, 2 hours later, in the same exact room, the Chinese permanent mission to the UN held a side event just to counter the facts that we presented in our side event. And we went to the room just to see who came to their side event. And guess who was there? The usual Cuba, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and Nepal. But guess who was in our room? Switzerland, Australia, Germany, the United States, people from the High Commissioner's office. This is our work at the UN. The UN is perhaps one of the very few places where we're able to have face-to-face engagements with the Chinese government and Chinese representatives, and at the same time have the entire world as our witness. There's a handout that I prepared. These are some of the materials that I prepared in relation to my work at Tibet Advocacy at the UN. I want to thank Sonam Jonkala at Tida Legon. She's a receptionist there. She helped me print this package yesterday. There are two parts to this. I'll just distribute it around. First part is all the written materials, and second part, which would be the few pages at the end. These are oral statements and presentations that I've made in my capacity as the Special Appointee for Human Rights. So do you mind? Maybe 2 copies in the front and 1 at the back. There are 3 packages. Thank you. These copies are also available. These copies are also available online if you guys would like to read further. So in addition to that, because I think we've expanded our resources at the Tibet Bureau in Geneva, and I think because our work has been so strong, I think the Chinese government is really engaged and spends significant amount of resources trying to cut our voice there. So for example, during China's Universal Periodic Review last October, Universal Periodic Review, UPR, is when member states go under human rights review every 5 years at the United Nations, and China's was up last November, sorry. And during then, we had made a written submission through the Tibet Bureau Geneva, and our submission was removed from the UN's official website. It was initially posted, but then later removed, citing technical difficulties. So then when we inquired as to why our submission was removed, we got a very generic response saying the report questioned China's territorial integrity. So what that means is the UN Charter says that we have to respect member states' UN sovereignty. This means that we can't be at the UN and be saying things like Tibet was invaded, Tibet was occupied, these words you're not allowed to use. That's the sad reality. So the challenge is preparing reports where you state the facts without actually using those words and without violating the UN Charter. And from my view, objectively, or an objective view, our report didn't violate any of the rules, but we didn't get any explanation. It was just removed, just like that, without any transparency. So that's one attempt to cut our voice there. Second is, I think a couple of you guys might have seen when I was delivering my oral statement at the UN Human Rights Council in June, I was interrupted 3 times. We get a minute and a half to speak, and within that short period, I was interrupted 3 times, and by the Chinese delegation, obviously. And what he said was that I should stop using abusive language, and there was no abusive language used. So now this time they couldn't vaguely cite the UN Charter, and now they're resorting to abusive language justifications. And when that was happening, obviously the other countries that were sitting in front of me, they were looking back at me and laughing because it was a joke what they were doing. And a bunch of the NGOs present in the room, after I was done delivering my statement, many of them came up to me from various backgrounds, Muslims, Christians, different countries. They all came up to express their support. And one of the main questions that I got after this experience was, oh, was it intimidating? Were you scared? And I have two answers to that. First answer is that this was not the first time it happened to me. This was the first time it was caught on camera, but I've been to many other events at the UN or intersessions, and I'm always interrupted by the Chinese delegation. So it wasn't a new thing. And my second answer is that when I'm there doing my job, it's a moral obligation. From my perspective, I don't think I can afford to be scared because I'm there to be a voice for the voiceless Tibetan people in Tibet. Now, the third attempt to cut our voice at the UN is their push for this whole notion of the contribution of development to human rights. In 2017, the Chinese government managed to pass a resolution at the UN called the contribution of development to human rights. Now, forgetting all the legalese and whatnot, basically what this means is what they're saying is, you know what, there are different ways to assess human rights. And one of the ways is to look at the economic development. And under that definition, China's done a lot for human rights because they've contributed so much in economic development in Tibet or in other regions under China. Now, the Human Rights Council has a special advisory committee, and they will be presenting their report to the Human Rights Council coming this fall as to how development contributes to human rights. I went to the advisory committee's meeting in January, read their report, their draft report that they had written at the time, and the report was prepared by a Russian expert. And there was a lot of praising of Xi Jinping's achievements in terms of economic development as a model to serve this China's push for a legally binding instrument. Now, what that means in simple terms is if this legislation gets passed, then when we go to the UN and we say there's no human rights in Tibet, what they'll ask you is,
Did China build you a road? We say yes. Did they build you nice concrete buildings? We'll say yes. Then they'll say, well, they're respecting human rights obligations, and that's the end of it, right? So please look out for that. That will be one of the biggest topics at the United Nations. So in terms of these new developments, the challenge for us is how do we advocate for Tibet away from the traditional way of doing things, just going there and just shouting human rights, which I'm not saying is a waste of time, but what are the ways to go forward? Make it stronger. So some people mentioned joining forces with other regions under China, which I think is a good idea, but there are also some realistic realities behind it, and maybe I'll just say it in Tibetan, but nganzo pat nyamdo chegore lagiyore te yang koranzo itsu nyamdo chigimi tisegiyore kunzo khallago resna zamlingi pepa lappe gau chidos nganzo pepa nyamdo china ngaranzo ji tsadwe ngala shirachi support rai mindus right. That so you need to be aware of the realities, and this is not something I'm making up. This is visible in their documentaries. They say it clearly, right? So it's simple to say we should join forces, but sometimes think about what do the other groups feel, right? Then there's SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. How can we advocate for Tibet through that segment, right? And then artificial intelligence. Someone from Canada is studying AI. Our Geneva Forum in November will deal with the state surveillance, China's state surveillance of religious minorities, and the export of those surveillance technologies to other totalitarian regimes in the world. This is one of the biggest topics at the UN, and our forum is being held just before, a couple of weeks before the Business and Human Rights Forum at the UN. And the concept note should be the last page in the written materials part, if you want to look at it. And then there's the environmental aspect. A UN climate discussion is happening this fall. Is Tibet being discussed there? No, it's not. We always talk about Tibet being the water tower of Asia, the world's third pole, but how come we're not being talked about at the UN? So there are different ways to really expand our advocacy, and instead of like thinking about, what big thing we can do, I think, we can take a step back and start from the basic. And the basic step is to actually have comprehensive reports about Tibet and about the relevant topics being discussed at the UN in relation to Tibet. Because unless we have facts, figures, data, advocacy isn't much use, and sometimes maybe just noise, right? The fourth thing I want to talk about is the role of the CTA. There are many young people in here who are involved in great NGOs that do great work for the Tibetan movement, and I have great respect and admiration for all of you guys, but I want to be unequivocally clear about one thing, and that is that the CTA as an institution is pivotal for the Tibetan movement. No matter what NGO you work for, you have to accept and recognize the fact that the CTA is the head. And why is that? Because the CTA is a continuation of the government we had back in Tibet. This is not just something we created out of nowhere. This goes to the core of our identity as a nation, as a state. The difference between that and an NGO is that tomorrow a couple of you guys and I can get together and establish an NGO under the local bylaws or regulations. But can you establish something like the CTA tomorrow? No, right? So you have to accept. It doesn't matter. Like sometimes I feel like we're too busy competing. Oh no, our organization's higher. No. CTA is the head, and then there are different bodies under it. That is pivotal for our movement. And at the UN, when we had our side event poster, actually, during the Panchen Lama's side event,
beside my name, I was the moderator at the session, and beside my name, we put CTA. We only put the acronym, okay? And the Chinese government sent people from the UN NGO desk to come to us and have CTA removed from the poster. Now, the funny thing is, back in the day when we used to hold side events, years ago, they actually used to use the full form saying Central Tibetan Administration, but there was not that much of a pressure back then. But because our presence has been so strong at the UN recently, they have a problem even with the acronym, you know? And so we had to have a very serious meeting about that. But the point of that is that it should tell you what an important institution the CTA is. Why did the Chinese government not have problems with the names of the NGOs listed on the poster? They only had a problem with CTA, right? So I hope you recognize the importance of the CTA as an institution. Now, in conclusion, one of the most common questions or depressing questions that I get is when I travel is, do you think there's any hope for Tibet? And my answer is that, first of all, that question in and of itself is wrong. The question really should be, is there any hope for universal principles of human rights which were recognized and established following mass atrocities in the world? Because the issue of Tibet is an issue of universal principles of human rights. It's not just about Tibetans. And my second answer to that question is that younger generation like us, many of you much younger than me, we are growing up in the free world. We know what democracy is. We know what freedom of speech is, freedom of expression is. And we have the privilege of having a nice job, a nice car, and a nice house. But is that what we want? No. What we want is to preserve our identity and pursue our dignity. And when one day the stars align, we will conquer, right? And with shared commitment from you and I, we can lead this movement forward. So let's do it. Thank you.
투시나 구주르말라 아니 ngazu lerim ki tamshe nan ke zo da thamadi bumramba tenzu dojilai ani krancha shana yidong chungi lor ari tezo homane chulu rawa chokju nala chokmi koshan nangje yidong chepke dawa chupa ne lochi ring chokmi nane chime hudu thola kra chokjungi chokzo la koshan nandu ani kongi ari tezo home nangla Peta Yana Nantu, Chede Rawa Mebe Kor, Niendo Piwata, Ani Dembe Bambo da Nandu, Ani Mase Kongi Pugi Cheda Rishun, Miriki Ngo Che Tola, Tomti Mambo Nandu.
Hello. Thomas Delia was going to one time teaching this, which was only Buchada, Daganation, Pandan, Sigon, Iwu, Zezonamadan, there Nadanga Jushin, Yegi, Sondolia, Pebe, and it chapter Tamshe, Nangan, Dingje, Hang, Dingje, Water, Sugar, Samache, Daganation there, and it Jushu Nangan, and it target on a sensing against Samalodia, and against some detached church. 당에 가자는 삼로 먹으시다면 다담시에 소소게 자청벌에 마찬가 인지의 야구랑데 지디 벽에 가야 가버리지 디캡 대버리지 동안 양 디지 캡 대비나 딱딱이 가면 망부중 버와 간주 다벽 실리아 잠대베 배바 상말로기 양잠잠지 벽이 아니 송게 교회마도 왜 공회 체계자 양 상말로 냠도 먼저 냠대 제국의 sonza 수입 제고로 다기 인클루시비티다 망부심 송도가 지디 딱 가르를 제고나 삼송아 제 아니 고 패스로 제 살롱 망부상들다 이게 sab제 준비시에 되게 인지나마지 슈 and ma tamshe di pyogana chik chesana and osman ro something it larwa che and nge ne mi de sho son du gang ya ta chran gi tamshe ning den shi tang res ta ma chinga ying de sa sang lo in ji tol na za a pa len de in ji na ya pyu bin ba che za ning den di nge gi in ji na lo shu ni che and di nga de tamshe che di ke che di ge di na chi also re 쿵的龙肉上罗别的的书个这些好多是，那样这突然那个月份呢，样个书呀这查解到的都把批上去了是吧？都行，这的搞出个的里面就是哪些的呢？就是家乡个是不是多啊？那对这的呢，咱们主张起来面对通通是不是多？咱们说个的没纯粹是，只对搞的老考过是多啊？但因呢搞说个지금 삼주 차단 슈트면 라마데 외계 얘기 배준 슈기 안 소딩 아주 파서 추와틀레 나야 되 제베나 야지 고갑지 어레 something 도라르와 제 마치 비네 담진난 거와 가만히 있으나 야 창조 댄스 나로나 제 답이게 안디레 딱 이제 수 주신나 샤브디 안 계지 대람다 아니 가서 그래 다 표든 대다 슈도 있는 순간도 같은 슈베스 라가지 왜 봐. 슈도스의 양 아주 컴퓨터도 슈도스 그러와. 슈베스 advocacy 제 다가는 시 communication 대람 다 별게 된다. 다디 some 콜라 용려야 globally 제 산에 소소로 locally 털려야 아주 공부 시장 털려야 안지 남한기 따주지 multiple perspective 지슈나 osman 로 something 게 그러와. 알리아스다 야스나 친구도 왔거든. 다음에 가서 subject of 마 준비 수비나 디레 성기 당연들이야. 당가정하던 앞쪽이 벽이 안에 갈수 그래. 말한 쪽이 다 탑주 레고디기 갑된 질랭 디워들이야 아니 계지 대람다 콜라치규가 내든 지시 디워라 대람다 슈벽이 내디 루랍습지슈 안 디워리야 다지 공부 시절이야 개발 여러 서 perspective 다다 만다부터 가르치도 가리야 지요네 시스템 레벨게 다다지다 안 잘람 리베토나 다다지시 니오데 주dom시야 아니 파트와 디네이션 오스메도 something 그러라와 다데 라마 마든 방고 된 것도 요스 전마시 뒤즈면 동안 두스레 다 당복 같은学되리야 디스피스 슈비나 다 가서 그래 개랍 로규 같은 셰비나 아주 표디 아니 오늘 개미 전주 맞아 봐도리야 아니 랑쟁이 개갑 지로봐 다디 임바데 다나 쇼게 데 추게 라기 아니 지 계지 침진 거 돈에 레송브레 딱 가면하게 망고 중고송아 아디 맞중군에 단에 뽑아도 되면 돈 난고 그래 something 돌라로봐 단다 랑쟁 라기 예매다 저기 예매된 니저 가가래 개랍 로규 거 토비이나 아니 안주 치고기 말에 다 헬로 디로 왔로 다 제레스 차 10에서 그거 내 망고 싶이 제고 그동안 le tambo 제가 다들 이마 가셔야 나를 저 줘서 나머지 디킹이 이메 강시 비게 디레 다단다 가르치고래 홍콩기 시티 유니버시티기 다 제외태셔 프로페서 라오 슈근 저어와 코난 게리데 저는 코난기 다 다들 인지널 되는 사실이야 알아봐 아니 디 Tibet 내셔널 시큐리티사 제가 그 대자기 대역이 뒤집스나 되는 동안 이 나코란 디송자 Tibet was never part of China before 1950. Examples of authoritative pre-1949 Chinese documents that prove it. 다 코란기 자나기 익자인 방법 쉬운 거도 봐. 알아봐. 자나 익자 가와 세배 이면이네. 익자 되는 나리야. 안 표디 아니 지금 고장납 중이야 알아봐. 다 민인의 칭인의 연다 야 가와두고 여배네 싸완이네 민도 소위 베이서와 다티미 야니 캐완시기 야이기 익자 망부절 공부던 시계여 봐 자디 저딩에 내가 심벌에 삼팅도 봐 자디 네가 된거 뽑아 되면 통네 디나 초그래 삼팅도 제다 가시고래 이네 다다마 시비질이야 아니 장나 그 이제 정아도 벽이가 쇼업을 되는데 sonza 당가서 당대 가시고래 전전이네 유자 차도여 봐 제가 가서 강내 동네 망고 싶지 요래 디 나네 인도를 쉬비나 유롱 가와대 여바이네 야베 도스미네 치제 유로 가와대 여바이네 유롱 디기 쿠리우다 아니 리슈다 미마리아 가서 고도에 채워로 봐 adaptation adjustment 채워로 봐 양디 강에 돈에 채워로 봐 딱 가서야 gen소도 가르스도 가려야 소소기 아니 가서 그래 미리기 뭐다 아니 기 리슈 라서바 디게 상라로 살아 만들어기 손에 아니 벽에 된된 탑절 지야지 아주 랭게 슈청 부시부시로 와 자다 만들어야 매드머르베 차도 여러 섬챙기도 자자다 딘데기 데베 손에 쉬비나 양 아주 잠잠 뒤도와 양 아주 배 yap줘야 로 죽주 친서 딱 가르쳐요 아주 가르쳐요 그래서 소소스 심수를 제 차로 그동안 양 아주 주연을 차샤면에 어서서 주연 레섬 챙기도 올라와 자다 담이 조 원시장군 야왕 탐지 친서 전부 초기 우티레 아니 그냥 봐서 그 꿀에 망고 전에 다다 나라서 미라봐도 나 미라 개변을 수르고 그러다 나머지 쉬예서 대 쉬고도가 다를 수도 강리야 만수기 다 가서 베베기 뭐 말아버지 점링 디땡리야 베베기다 아바도 나렌자 펜티 줍드는 집에 벽에 낭된 리베기디 점링 수가리야 뭐 수업이 아주 다들 진디어 와 그러와 디펜마세기 아주기 제제 침모르다 와 제제 다가스 말에 제장 가서 다가면 친구도가 벽에 신에 지켜봐 가려서와 벽에 마시는 미 벽을 말해서 나요 말라와 제대 벽에 디 싸게 통계상 말와 남주께 디펜마세기 길이 주고 오늘 전에 나렌다기 분들 주든 저 낭베리 좀 야시 띵삽 되게 돼 땅에 로카지 장가집에 계절와 가서 갈고 공부하셔 그래서 그 공부도 장 여러와 제대 오늘 아주 캐들려라고 하는 말다 세상 제대 싸게 통계를 지내다 콜라네 시다 개발 민도로 봐 이제 리슈 시부지 로 자랑 망고 위해서 디테스 장나에 다 통나에 디 내가 좀 보시죠 섬들도 다디네 내가 최소질이야 안주데 위피미 딕조스로 봐 당가라서 있는 전주 슝으로 봐 딘데지 이어버지 안주 전주 수강을 믿어와 다다데 야라 건조 좀 말고 송송아 안주 초코지도 가르쳐는 맞는데 오늘 전에 이게 고대에 가르칠 수도 가야 위피미 딕조스가 쇼레스 봐 그래서 디 안주 지구 쉬고 그래 디 알아서 왜 슝을 안 와. 니 돌이야 지구다 아니 잡죠 쉬어야 내가 좀 그래 좀 챙겨도 다디네 페베 뭐 진저디 가서 내 돌이야 또 망고 쉬고 그래 대만에 직송만서 뒤에도 돌아서도 아니 등산 가서 강해지 뒤로 다 장부 쉬고 와 당가 가면 쉬고 시를 리면도 제가 당가 뭐 진저 돌이야 케베 님시 망고 치고 와 미치리야 뭐 진저 망다고 망고 용 치고도 아주 말로 와 그래서 벼바지 임에 찬시안에 벼가 싸고 가래 소소 뭐 진저 와 노유 감수미 뭐 진저 줄로 담아달 때면 뭐 진저 예포몰 때면 뭐 진저 로치중로 때면 뭐 진저 라소바 다 속대 나리야 다 람도 가고 랍주로 와 이네 아주 뭐 진저 디 개체 좀 방금 뒤바이나 마 벼바이 라이스 동안 디모네 개체쇼 샤고다 안디 개체쇼 집에 올라와 가 암도 바이네다 나 위바이네다 나 칸바이네다 아니 나 미리 데마이네다 가린디 케바민도 디 내가 신고로 와서서 연송해 제가 등산 아주 지정나리야 잠자야 뭐 진저 노제 충만대 체에도 충만 수에지데 아니 나랑서 탑저다 나랑서 내가 주차거도 와. 이 공과 인지민지 샤롱 나스 디 취해지. 다디 가서 내가 주차거도 와. 제 다디네 나바서 당서 상방로리아 동네 최고의 망고제도 고가 망고 시부스도 와. 그와 땅 가서 지금도 표현하는 옆에 배바저 제모도 가서 고가 가려서 가서 라완 시부스요 와. 아주 정하나 주게 레라버 주고 말 주바이네 니마 가시 나와 가시 로진도 되는 거로 와. 와. 제상 아주 콘저 진잡 체도에 디 아주 내가 시부스데 디 공부 시고 그래 something 돌아 와. 제 다 예지기 가서 디알람 토라야 땅아 칠레 케바데 게 말에 다 인지토션 expertise 게요 말은 갈로와 이요 말에 가르치고 있어도 갈라 international relations 되는 디 육존알 집에나 하이다 아르디 집에나 디 로좀 믹스에 제고 내든 지로와 디 토랑아 게 정박게요 말와 다 전에 저런 디 돌게 시기도 슬라우와 다 게제 셰로 저송 말와 제가 갈 가르칠 수도 갈라야 다 아리 제제처다 라왕 현소기 gen진 속도 제보다 gen진 인신배 광기 다로 시멘스지리야 나안 양요 갈아서 싸요와 어디 니데 시샤제 아니한테스 감이 쉬비네 어스레섬디 제다다 예지 달람 세야디 돌이야 다다 망다 망고 쉬어와 이슈도 와데스 등그레 섬칭도 제가 예지 달람다 콜라치규데 시부처와 글로벌라이제이션스와 다 등사 가르쇼라 네 간조 데르와다 취재 그 토안에 이내에 벤조 그 토안에 이내에 고라 직주 사상 아주 낭배 취재지만 땡땡배 대화대로와 interdependence and interconnectedness, interconnectivity in the Sigurwa. This shows it thumbs up chavarwa. Says Yama in another deal of Chagua. What is somebody Panang model Yanni should do the other Chudashadam into Suna de Dederoa. I think some bed Zamling Tokdo Chichan, College of Euro, Didiro. Satan Kawa near to the Slava in a Same, Donara the Chudosh and Majan Kigua, in their songs are Manju Pug and Nedian Delia, Chorgin meet on Archie and Mever, which is the Chorgin is in Tona Majan Jerua. Zamling for a college of Chavarwa. Chesan, Dinsan Zamling, and the Saturday get global warming. 도미 톱나 나르 차샤미나 계지 최대 라왕 내대 시대가 벽 내대 시부스 내가 참 버와 와 저 라스트 오바 다가나 시다 딕산 추강에 망고 체대강이야 잠링기 양도 강조래 NSD 가서 아시아 나라의 추균기 고수상 강조로와 저 내가 시부 차거든와 저단 니게 될 양아저 대화다 제 배전 탑재 제야 돼 내가 시부 저래서 친구도 올라로와 제 다 가르치고래 베게 대람다 아니 슈베고 리그 삼대 강라야 다 개와서 가르송고도 스튜 강라야 아니 기지 대람 생엔디 아니 베 슝데기 대람 치고젤이야 차샤요 말레스 델이야 규람니 요르스 그동안 디플로마시 트랙 1 시도 규람 당고제 아니 트랙 2 시도 규람니 바로와 규람 당고들이야 엔 계급지기 우티네레 슝다 슝파저 대화 첸로야디 지그로와 그봐 다 규람니 바들이야 아니 체 슝데남 아니 지 가서 슝대 많이 버 속바 미케기 소소기 토네 대람 제야 망고 싶지 동안 라로와 제상다 가라스 페베 내다 차샤베나 아니 세메 시와도 우메람게 토네 베겐이게 간요 세기 망고는 거로와 다 슝대게 노야네 아니 겨울음지 믹세 고잡라 써바다 가서 대기 가면 망고 중소송아 나브레 단도 tumde 톡도서데 개초마데 tumde 망고도 되어요로와 라로와 다 이네 단다 가서 대좀 대버데 가서 망설라 가를 랭게에서 소소도 좋아 다해로와 유람 니바데 토네로와 아니 나저 슝데 많이 배 촉바 인베 이내레 미케르 소소 인베 이내레 아니 나저 단대바도 가르치에도 아래 슝을 야지다 마당 원에 소소 지다 데스당으로와 나래 원에 가르치에도 예를 잡혀 가르슈투고도 그러봐 이제 다란데 단다 간대포랑기 중직공 책임 순송아 자나 미마냠도 먼저 대화체 내가 싶지도 단디 슝을 띄운 거고 마데 밑에 미 그러봐 룹주도 대화체 개왕다 대화체 미치 파주 초고체 그러봐 제 제국은 되게 더네 배전 레군이야 수긴 시라테게 섬들 그러다 되게 나야디 내가 침벌 지어래 섬팅도 돌아로와 제다 베나 차샤면 디 얘기 references 배도 되나로 여러 다 케베기 전용 dum지기 다 냠십 여러와 디스그로와로 다 conflict resolution 아니데 토리양 얘기 아니 가서 세메 시와다 오메 남게 토네 표현이 간요세디 표현님 삼라 말에 잠린려야 먼저 잡에 간요 망고 요래 샤기리 강에 요러와 미들 이스트인 라소바 간요 망고려야 디토네 에네 파수 가서 올다 최메그 남네 다로 토네 아니 커뮤니케이션 그 토네 야람 리그베토네 시부신야가 차세정에 케베 좀 되제 이데템으로와 제타 도나체게 망고 유도다 디 계셔도 먹어제 아니 동나요네 디스게르와 강에 치셔버들보다 얘기 다가내신레 안디네 다다 슈베 레고르 차샤바이나 슝데 요레 슝데 마이바 요레 당가서 아메리카 차샤바이나 아니 비겔리아다 또 디르와 로 표준 레고 인터내셔널 캠프 뭐 티베탄 다가나시 오피서 티베트 표준 레고 얌도 지에네 티베트 로비스 제가 디주고로와 다 사자 감각 연구도가 디게 디다 지 할람 슝데 마이바르 차고요 야면에 체 슝데를 차고 쓰기로와 디네부터네 먼저 파주는 나 요레 섬 챙기도라로와 다 딩사 동다 동투버자 말에 다 자기야 남네 그봐 다 딩산 잡을이 나라야 미지게 고도와 그봐 담닝 동두제는 미지게 소셜 미디어나 미지게 미지 망아디 다 딩산 자기야 남네 누구 옆에 sonza 디네부터는 다 남바주 미랍다 만소네 베데 자기 뒤럽 축제 때에 미랍로와 디 토르처럼이 현재의 냠용 요르와 난 디게 디 집에 동다라 관대 편도 섬제 디 공과 세제 도과에 계층으로 섬친도라와 제 다디 다다 계셔 갈 수도 아주 디 가서 오래 벽 내던 디 시제 정부 시비시에 다다 디 지용을 직다고도 와 군대 공부 남지들 승고도 holistic perspective system로와 디다 윤도 강리야 개발서 가르치 선디 디두스 딜레 루바 망고두스 macro level 시디 칼라 자체에 따다시요로와 예럽 루주부터 냈다다 따와 민접부터 냈다다 지 망고스 동아 릭슈 나망부터 냈다다 반디 월이야 아니 디 여러분 촉대 득주고 여러분 institutional 디네게 돈에 따다지도스 디 올이야 아니 지 디르바다 organizations 자 촉대 치중다 안다만다다 디 올이야 미케르소소 삼로다 미케르소소 저바 체정 들어와 단 디게 파서 축적 되고 싶으셔 대람 야마 싶으셔 여러분 따다 망보지게 토할 때네 벽 탑재 체례 마도 지기 삼로 직당하시는 디게 민도와 견송에 제가 벽견이 강의 유서 유상 공부 시조디 야체제도 마셔버이나 양안 저기 내지 추루 그래 something도 제가 내가 가지 저와이 스튜디오가리아 대기 캐바스 송송아 만나서 페베 탑재체디 당고 페베 내지 야부 신에 당저 랭게로 봐 나로 소소 야부 맞는 미리야 직시에다 가지는 펜시라 토고요 말와 제가 페베 이메이나 페베 레귤리아 페베 고쳐버지 나로 고쳐버지 그거도 쓰면 디토리아 다 갈수 오래 응아된 얘기 아니 신유 롭정다 삼류 고갑이 계신 거 싶지래 something 나로 당아도 dalam ribethone ani ji ka tadang ris kari shebe sena dire da dalam ribati ledun kari shebe nega shibi cha yo ba communication competence go wa dalam thuza che di ba tan di tola da ngab mizi ke de yo ba da shena choa yo mar ba da tan da to do ji ba she shebe ina ledun kari shebe ine ledun di mi gu du bi ki to ga mi se ki dalam chedang chi do ba di tola instrumental communication sig do it's very goal oriented ba di go do Dita nyamdo khare dugu sede kangla ani relational communication me the mean dewa darwa kega dewa di ki dalam chedan de nega shibis dunga chedan dige ni nyamdo dobe thone mado chi gi ta pena nga cha sha mena ka ari ji ji cheda rawan hen so ki genjin da chidu kangla tangbo me the mean dewa ya bu chu go dunga ni ya bu cha sa de kala an mi chu yi je lo ge ro che ba an chidu kala an mi chama lo ki mangme 가서 다 지메 전에 나 속도 너무 윤거로 뭐가 없네 당분 믿음이 대화도 야고 메디가 미 도버서 그러고 가르치러 이나 양고 따와도 만다르치면로 지금 동안 제가 믿음이 대화되기 거네 양 니네기 그거 먹고 여러 섬 친구도 올라와 니게디 내가 여러 섬 친구 아다 다가는 시간 좀 대남 지도 갈이야 다 되게 인터 제너레이션 직송송 섬으로와 겐슌버루 리네레 다 딩에 디톨 인터 그룹 커뮤니케이션스 그러고 속대 담만도 버로 맞다 가서래 집에 뭐가 말하게 버르고 대람 여러 체단을 써봐. 다가는 시 리슈 나마기 인터컬처럴 커뮤니케이션. 제가 리슈는 삼로 따다 말하는 거는 아주 파서 대람 지도가 팀 하자마다 연역을 막고 연구동아. 제가 닌데 토리아 아니 제 공부시에 가서 그러다 차례나이디 내도 계신 거로 레스 something 올라와. 다 된다 직대 독도로 뭐지 신 카톨친 비나 다들 뒤지 됐어. 다 디레선 그 당한테 대람 지도가 알이야. The acronym Citizenship javina I did the integrity 안저 된된 탑주 쓰고 여러와 제가 안저 transparency 치서와 치세 낭제로와 야블로게 제직제 야마 주머지 셰 구금이 동안 제가 그 뽑아 내면 돈에 셰토에 예배서 integrity 시부진 년가도와 어디 거래서 니다 냠돌 양아라도 당국이 대람이네레 지도 상바기 미 대람이네 슝데 대람이 대람 relationship 년가 시부도 선거로와 다가는 effective communication 대람 투자 체제 동안 거기 랍샤 여다 삼 되게 말봐 파 거다 쳐도면도 다해서 봐 딘데서다 딘데도 믹서 옵션 체제도가 디게디 공부 체제디 내가 요래 삼 친구도 올라와 hello 다 가우도다 양디 라송아 잘라 다시 다 가서다 딘데 독도 없이 다 가서 도로 잡으러서 제베나 다 간저 자기는 가면 대신고 동안 당어서 로드지 세브레 다 오면 랑거톤에 전에 중대 개민도 직직 전에 중대민도 니니 전에 중대민도 쓰는 동안 공부 때 야채선에 세면에 군대 선거 동안 커도 세면에 당 치고 동안 저 치고 돌아와 나마서도 나도 공로 중지로 왔다 수고해도 왔다 안 잡으지나 다 미제 제가 친사로 왔다 매일 제가 라게 버려요 봐 제가 오늘 당 치고 돌아왔다 선인이 별 드레이션에 양사선 되면 가서 이면 시도가 좀 뺏어 그러와 이네 개가 지금 탑재시대 나시 마시게 되 말어와. 그러와 나시베는 예쁘고 랑고로 와. 그러와 예쁘고 랑고로 와. 지도가 개가 탑재시게 되 찍잖아. 뭐 자다 가시 고스 그래. 찍잖아. 유대견 제가 가서 낭백게 제서와 산이는 표현내주 다 체스기로 와. 그 배주에는 로그마도 지기 레왈로 땅사베 주고들어와. 요아이제 요말와. 산이라고 얘네 디리 레왈로 짜들어와. 산이 잡기에서 와. 제가 먼저 레왈도 뒤나면 라야면 돼. and nge michilya loju shona tesh le ma jo me ne kerang zo mizi kerang bogu mizi khanda yang ni ngajo tonda kal so de phye di 소소 라완 수련의 대전 앞에서 타세고 그러마도 지금 계란 미즐이 녀바도 세고요 말은 예 미즐이 녀바도 세고 그 세고요 괜찮아요 제가 네 공부 야채에서 세면은 한 탕마저 열에 두번 쓰고 그래서 정도 돌아봐 슈거데 기슈 첨부 때서 공개산 매지 다 대샤나마도 지금 되게 인공 시라 수지 저렇게 다를 대 차와로 지지 시라디게 지지 다 민도로 봐 대샤긴다 아니 저와 전에 또 알아 야채시 수죠
tushina tudadin tojila tanga zo tiwa tilingi lerim de gozu yin ani tanda kama ship shenga du ani tiwa nga lengi tangbo ani tiwa di sulai me ani chempero na ani dijune kizi kopna ani nganzu ya kogom pigi
Hello. Tishle nyemingli yuding Toronto ni ani tanda dingjagang la peme mangbushtu mixe gi shenge mangbushtu ani wode nga ngune gaushira chungso dinashi I'm sure audience la peme mangbuyenge changma chedu sem shungune ge ajre ni dingjala langwa dewa de la tujina xuan yi tujina ani nge tiwa di Kunchuroma Lalai. Kunchuroma, it's my understanding that you did your documentary on workers' rights. If you could speak a little on the matter, as well as how it could be applied to the Tibetan society in any way, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Hello.
zo tiwa nga di debla lengira an tiwa ngi batang su
Los. Nga olo bayu yi ani tadi tamshen nangge samala nin tangmane tojina shuaira ani donzilla la ngone tojina shuai. So it's good to put a face on the barrage of emails I was getting the last 2 weeks. Di chiwa di sonam sola ni ti samdang yegi Confucius Institutes gi neju di nga zara neju di tongdura. So nge tiwa di Confucius Institutes gi kolare. First, I want to thank students for Free Tibet for being at the front lines for the fight against Confucius Institutes. I think today we made many references to the concept of China's long game, and I think by now we know that China pools all their resources to be a step ahead of everyone. So I think this campaign against the Confucius Institute is actually one concrete step to combat China's long game and short game. So my question to you, Sonamso, is how can the youth and the students in all the universities around the Western states, in the West, and community members all around the world go back to their respective places and accelerate and strengthen this campaign against Chinese propaganda and censorship? And I know the goal is to kind of mobilize the youth, but how specifically can we do that? Thank you.
Hello. Ni chua de roru dingji doji lali. Jidang ni chua de tanu shuge tang wasam so ine ta koga ramasura. Ine tan roru dingji doji la shushana peje chua de tata shi degi sam gdu ya. Cheza ani ni tanu shuge tanda shugi lagi shuwa nang shi she nang atu gera loju nang la ya kala date important mambo shi nang kogi presidential na tuenso. Tin sample 1912 Declaration of Tibetan Independence Day la shiro. Ta tigol yang aju ti kalore. Nesu mambu yoro. Ne pecha sa na aju ki jamgoro mo chini aju le ya kar sun la na. O tigol kung aju ki tanda base sa mang chichu te ani kongo shaga ba ki tanda political history la dinal le ta mang chichu du in si re chiza ta aju ni jwa dodo de kari la na chi aju ki 공옥이 된다 팔아야 더 칼로다 내가 자 침부시다 더 소바 침부다 아니 질라 내가 치디 삼불라 딘디기 가주기 찹지기 아주 찹지다 아니 팀가 아주 덴바라디 제야라 아니 가래 슈겐도 니준도 다 찍인디도 가리 요래래 온데 토이
지원한게 숨차사 쉬어디 범위나 비밀로 그것 나로나 된다 비밀 가시기 된다 이 컴플레인 저거더라 아니 풀라게 그것 지도는 so next 지워디 비밀나 나오나 라 비밀나 기미나 아니 아주 풀라 그것디 비셔기 라
Hello. Hello.
Tishle. I actually wanted to ask a question in the previous panel, but unfortunately, I wasn't picked. And so I think just because right now the panelists are largely women, which I'm really excited about. I think you didn't spoke about it, and I would really like to see more of in the future. I actually wanted to have maybe the women on the panel speak on the importance of Tibetan women and our role in obviously in our community, but especially in advocacy. Also in the context of, again, I wanted to refer back to the presentation that Tenzin Chuangla did, from TWA, and she spoke largely about the ways in which the birth control policies that have been implemented by the Chinese government, which is actually an act of genocide, the ways in which Tibetan women have largely been violated and harmed by the Chinese government in a systematic way. I wanted to also just expand that conversation to speak on the ways in which gender-based violence continues in our own community and the ways in which we can address that. Also because of the clear power dynamics that we can see in our community. Even, yesterday it was lovely to have a tour of the Gashak, but I was a little disappointed and disheartened by even the ways in which there was a lack of kind of representation of Tibetan culture in the ways that men had, men dressed in the workplace. I expected to come to the community, our shung, and to be able to see everyone beautifully adorned in our clothing. And even in those subtle kind of ways, like those dynamics are very evident and again, very disappointing. So for women, for the folks on stage who are women who are working in advocacy and in leadership, I just want to ask you to speak about that, about your role in that kind of dynamic. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. So my question is both for Wasanam So and what is Yalka La. I think if I'm pronouncing right. So with regards to the CTA, sorry. Can I continue? So with regards to the role of CTA and the civil society which we have created in our own diaspora, we've had a very vibrant, I'm guessing, within our own forum, we have many people who are actually founders of their own NGOs, are working for NGOs of Tibetan origin, right? So in the 1960s to 90s, if you see, a lot of the NGOs that we had to be under the CTA because we didn't have funding outside CTA. We needed to get it to CTA or Gandhi Podang at the time. So CTA had to be a coordinator and it had to nurture the civil society. But post-90s and 2000s, particularly in the West, we see Tibetans now are getting funding, are starting their own NGOs, and you see a kind of almost like a plurality of voices, as you said earlier, and which is also in many ways decentralized. So then, in the changing context then of the world scenario, then what role does the CTA play? Does it still try to nurture it on its own, or does it work alongside this civil society, which in democracy is very important, right? So because the CTA is not an NGO, it's a governing body, it's a government. So what role then does the government play in relation to the emerging civil society that is sort of emerging outside of it?
Are we going in order? Okay, let's. Thank you for the question. I think the first one was the worker rights video that won the Emmy, and how, what is it about and how can it benefit the Tibetan society? The video is one of 7, and it was season 2 of an English language learning video created for English language learners in New York City. There are about 2.1 million English language learners in New York City. That's about 25% of the population. And we wanted to create a resource that would be really helpful to them, not just to learn English, but to learn about city services and their rights. The worker rights video in particular, and all the other videos in the 7, in the series, are helpful to all immigrant communities, including the Tibetan immigrant community. The worker rights video in particular talks about wage theft, about paid sick leave. And in New York, we have a large population of Tibetans working as nannies, working in construction, and they're amazing. But a lot of times they do not really know what rights they have, so they miss out on paid sick leave. Maybe their kid is sick. So you can actually take 3 days if your kid is sick, right? So you're an amala, you have to go work, and your child is sick, and now you cannot make money that is important, right? And then you cannot make money that helps you sustain your family. So I think the resources that we talk about in the video is applicable to the Tibetan community. Perhaps a fun fact, since we're talking about the video, is one of the videos, me being a Tibetan, and as I said, we need to be intentional about how we present ourselves. We made sure that the videos capture Tibetan voices. So one of the videos, that didn't win an Emmy, but it's equally important. It's about immigrant rights. It's called Sonam's Mom. And Sonam Wangdi played in it. It's about immigrant rights and how can you, Sonam's mom comes from India. He's a refugee. He has asylum, and he is helping his friend talk about notario theft, which is really a big problem in the US. So I think, I hope that answers your question.
So I think I'll just start by answering Olo's question about how to mobilize and directly engage with Confucius Institutes. So first off, I think a simple answer is studentsforfreetibet.org and sayno2ci.org. There's information there, but I think one way, it's easy to say, just go on campus and start writing to your CI. And I think that's why we try to simplify things as much as we can. SFT and our coalition, the members that are in certain coalitions that we work with on, we've created a toolkit. But I think one of the things that we can provide is we're always open to speak with anyone that wants to engage on Tibet, that wants to work to shut down a local CI or wants to be part of a CI campaign, regardless of whether that's in their backyard or that's miles away. So we always encourage you to write to us, to call us, to contact us, however. And a lot of the shutdowns, they are led by the members in that specific community. But we, as SFT, of course, we want to be a resource to make sure that that happens and use our connections, whatever leverage that we have to, again, make that possible. There are several campaigns that we have going on. We refer to sort of them as local campaigns in which we're currently trying to shut down a few more CIs, so hopefully you'll hear about in the coming months. But I think, again, when we talk about campaigns, sometimes we think, okay, let's shut it down, and we maybe have these expectations that they're going to happen in a short period of time. And a lot of times campaign work takes months of dedication and months of hard work, which is why I was saying, at some point we have to buckle down and say, we're going to do that, right? So I encourage anyone, again, it's all online. Check out if there is a Confucius Institute near you, or maybe at your alma mater, and let me know. Let's get to work.
Hello. Lero pomoso shibuchi di nudo pongwe nga che to mi do wa. Da ta chana gi song sha di pezhen di chunu ku bie chungni lo gi da yongjap sa da song wa. Da ben di ri sha nganzo beben ne den di sheda gi shije chimo da nyoksen chen sa da complex go da. Indio kan ya da pena phe gi gera lu ju to ne ane phe di rangzen 인백이 내주 시기 유비나 라로와 니토르야 따당 라마나 먹고 여러 삼정도 당가랑 속이 뺐다 단다보다 망세대 공샤가 버기 로바 시드니 게랍 시야 시고 로바 니지고 말에 따당에 빼준 쉬스와 그냥 자나랑기 케와 라오기 아니 자나기 익전 닝바 로 자다 망병은 익전나리아 별디 개미 차시에 루규 믿으스도와 세상에 남준이 디스고 게라 루규 벼다 자나기 대바다도 간라 벼 케베 따당시 요레스 디벤 퍼스펙티브 벼베다다 다가나신 자나 그다다지 Chinese perspective 다가나신 Western Tibetologists nubjo ki kyawang tadang kanga tene ane soso ki ki de je tangpo tangsha je domchi kyab go res di chemen kewen namjo chokshin chi gyo marwa ko kari chung merwa 제자 다당 가서 단 남기 망한 세대 다 세면 시바도 우메 남기도 벽은 탑재 쪽에 예버 선자 네 시자디 야야 대비나 얘마 별 랑제이 배 김전 그래서 그러와 얘마 별 랑제면은 딱 가서 랑제 줄렌 지금에 가서 애는 민든 선배 랑조 거스 라게요 말은 거 랑자 걸 말어봐다 제가 얘마 랑제 계급 식지 되면서 요러와 이 가서 랑제 줄렌 제 톱다도 요르다 이네 다 잠을게 내다 유르다 요래 야채사네 삼루탄 게 요래 제가 이제 부터는 전에 가서 다 랑제 줄리면서 그러와 제가 딱 가서 그래 딱 도도 쉬위나 아니 따다 만나 방법이 때문에 소소 남주의 배제제네로와 디치는 게제 쉐위나 게제의 수구다 게제의 비게 죽으시라 여러 something 들어와 미님도 아다 내가 시작에 나야 데 렘피고로와
Tagi tiwa dingal ra. Sono mala. Ane okay. Sorry, ngi tiwa ngal reminiscem. Kita ya wada nyemera. But I think it had something to do with the growing number of NGOs who are able to get funding outside of CTA, right? So the issue of centralization and decentralization, is that it? So, right, so centralization, decentralization, okay. First of all, I think it's a really good thing that we have a growing number of NGOs who are able to function independently without the CTA's help. That means the Tibetan community is doing a good job in terms of advocacy and rather than just relying on the CTA. And what's really good about this decentralization, as you say, is that if you look at how China functions at the UN, for example, the NGOs, they're called gongos, government-sponsored NGOs. These are not real NGOs, and the UN officials know that. So when these NGOs pretend to be NGOs and go there and essentially just read out Chinese propaganda, it undermines their credibility as a whole. Whereas we have Tibetan NGOs, SFT, Tibet Advocacy Coalition, and many others who go to the UN and are able to lobby independently without us telling them what to say, what not to say. That tells them that the Tibetan movement is based on truth, based on facts. At the same time, they know that we have the CTA as the head, right? And having a leadership for any movement is pivotal. And they recognize that. I've had this conversation with people at the UN. So if there are many NGOs growing independent of the CTA, it's a good thing. It shows that we're not a totalitarian regime like the Chinese government. We believe in democracy, or we believe in people's freedom of expression. And in terms of the next question about, can I take that answer? Rinchu Domala's question about women's role in advocacy. I've had a couple of conversations coming to Dharamsala, and some of them have told me that the women's right issue is this Western concept and doesn't exist in the Tibetan community. But obviously they're not aggressive when they say it as a joke, but there's truth behind that joke that they're trying to play. And what's wrong with that statement is that you're looking at the worst situation around the world, comparing that to the situation of Tibetan women, and then saying we don't have there's so many women in leadership positions in these countries and not as many in the Tibetan community. I mean, not to pick on the current leadership. I know they're doing as much as they can to have
I'm going to use our invented stand and answer that question because it's about women's rights, and here is my invention. I think women, this is from a very personal place. I think there's been a study of revolutions and women in revolutions, and revolutions and movements that do not have women fail or die very quickly. And there are a lot of reasons for it, and I think perhaps we don't have as much a time to discuss it. But women's rights in the Tibetan community, at least from what I have seen, I think is a really present issue. It's a very important issue. I think there have been measures that have been taken, but I think we can do a lot more. Perhaps as a group of young Tibetans that are collected here, we can actually sort of assess the level of our own internalized oppression, our own, the patriarchies that define us as men, the patriarchy that have defined us as women, the classism in our society. Because I think if we accept what doesn't work, we can appreciate what works much better. For me, growing up in a household with only women, I see women as really powerful people. My mom, who's only been through 5th grade, every time, and I think in that same light, what I want to say is activism and advocacy is super, super important. And every time for me, the first taste of Tibetan protest was going with my mom. And every time we were in front of the UN and we would, say, what do we want? Free Tibet, when do we want? Now. My mom, who is usually, subdued, does her manes and very religious, she would go, now, now, now! Like, she's really passionate. And I think the women in the Tibetan movement carry a lot of passion. And if we see young Tibetans today, women have been really great examples in the movement. So I think it's a really important conversation. And I think we should start by sort of internally assessing how patriarchy has affected each and all of us and how we can move beyond to build a stronger community.
내가 막 이상하스더라. 아니 지와예나. 네. 내지. 지와 숨링기로 아니 니준이 뒤즈요나 니 보고 표현이.
Hello. Kungamsa nyeming harong ing atanda derdun la any criminology da security law la du master chede ani ngi thiwadi yala kunju tumala ta ani kuship tenzi dojila khangruchi ne ani du jane nan tiksare thiwadi tanga zu gichi gi nalo la ngu shubu shigu yudu samla ya ta so sheshiru di European Union da ani nyamte getso dige di cha di yore yimbe tanga zu same ku chepsi rikbe tadan chi thone chebe yimbe na gichi nalo la chepsi gi ta chi game di shiuchi tsigi yore same kingi yore deson da European Union ro chasana ani brisik la ne ta British ma thongwa de ki ne da chi cha di yore deson za ani nyamte getso nalo la yimbe ne ani security council nalo permanent member chido 가주스키 야가인 바는 상마이기 슈게 요르단 가주스키 게임스게 참 킹겨 대손자 아니 나버니니 딘디기 단디기 투주 딘디시 나로라 가주 색 망치니와 중차베 딕주 망보치 단디 투주 두르디 나로라 교트웨기 딘디시 냠시바 망보치 교 덴덴 샹갸지 리폼지 차지레 송구도 아니 델라키나니 따수 컨트리 요시슈이
지역하고 지체스라 렌.
다 표면 너도 공부하러 와 파피로 와 양수는 것도 따다라 때마서 자자자신다. 디레 저정한 대남을 거창에 왕년 지대는 망세 디레 꾸기 마셔다로 와 제자가 부모스 섬지들이야 시부치 틈부여로 와 디슈쇼가 다디디다 footnote 다 저랑게 단다 kad나이 디들 와로 ngare tata chebina ta tata nganzo youngster budi khashugure keji gi ta dirwa lo zamni keji na da chero ta yin zamling yuwa shibiste rugo ro lo che cha san de song za ta bigi keji gi ane tanda zamni keji na da yuwa tegel se te masibada mare sam chengdo lo wa ta bena nga biga tegen chi da pa ba do keji chode rawan lenzo 단 대여기 민나 계제 망고 두고 래 계급 상바도서 부잡 정한 두고 래 딱 계좌 암정 이해 되죠 가리야 변 차샤바는 다단단 가서 아메리카 신진디다 슈마던 거 지어와 라르와 제자변은 변은 계지 도함이 톱당 기 변에 가서 올hen서 되는 마 되는 거도와 다 제가 망고에 되는 배다 가지고 꼭 모르고 와 제대로 가려야 내가 사바 차도 가려야 양 소도 사바 쏘고 되는 용식으로 와 제단다 이게 이 규제 망고 싶을 라래 여러 something 돌아와 다 제단 가서 남중에만 네 납주 나네 제 단다 있네 된 가지고 개배 싶을 와 UN 저 Tibet just 쉽게 얘기하러 와. 다 디다 랍쇼로 와. 얘네 니치고 지네 쉽 구조 태에서 여러 쌈 증명 들어와. 먼저 코가 가와이네 제고 그동안. 그러나 나로 차샤비나 쓰다 점링 계지기 최대 라왕기 게딩 나로 여러 와. 얘네 배바지데 레그 대와 여래 배배 미치 게라룩교는 정말 레버레. 얘들 갈까 가와이네 게 고급 세제와 배배 내든지 수사도나 캐부제. 디 수고요 와. 제상 등상 점블링 배나 아베리가 차샤만 가장 예장아 대마용원에 지도 된배나리아 유라지 등가리아 아리 치세 레공기 개갑 야다 시네 그러와 미동다 지수 주공도가 예지 최대로 완내 되가 이리 주디 민망고 투고도가 제자 땅 얘기 표현 레고데 가다 갈이야 민그룹 스타샤 예장 권내 예장 칸데스튜거스도가 예지 최대로 완내 되디 메드로 쉬우지를 자스 반스나 디로와 도미 톱나 지망기 전전주게 Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 미상만 나올이야 소소 줄루를 이제 제다 맞제 줄루 제다 맞제 라완레스 띵냥가레스 라완디 시자 첨부지에 최대 라완 라완이나 먼저 라완 삼로 라완 두종 라완 라완 상마 볼루 그랬어 동안 제산냥가 12주 여자 상매 미디로 봐 니기 등자대 배조 제정에게 배역이 최대 라완 내든 조제제 딱 배배 된데 내도 주고 봐 제상 가서 가와이네 고급 세나이 내가 레슨 되게 다 유바 가르 테만 쓰기 나요 와 이래 다 대국인다
I think the issue is not just that the world is changing in and of itself. The world is not just changing by nature. You know, what we have to advocate is that it is being changed according to China's terms. Right? When you look at the EU, it's a multilateral system. Then China comes with the 16+1 alliance, or I think it's 17+1 now. I think Italy joined it recently. That's a direct attack on the union that EU has, right? China's creating its own alliance just to break apart what Europe has. Or if you look at the UN Human Rights Council, it has its own like-minded countries, just to and which actually questions the credibility of the UN human rights system as a whole, the multilateral system that's supposed to work, because of how China is able to navigate the system with the establishment of its own alliance, right? And if you look at other countries, I don't want to name names because these are, you know, I guess you could say they're internal matters, but China has influence in their domestic issues, domestic elections, right? So the world is not just changing because you know, by nature, but it's changing according to what China wants. And that is what we should be able to the message that we should be able to tell the world.
Next.
Hello, Trustlee. The Tramadangel Rogel Sashi Shogosams. Ani Tangara Rojina, Leka, and the Tapsianalo Leka Chita Lunis to do. Until Nalola Suzuki, Chizunalo Leka, Chizunalo, Lingupe and Genki, they took up to Suzuki, Mamush Toyungudra. The Odilang is some chashinere, Troashinere, Suzuki Girki Kang in the GML, Roa. Some chashinere, Troashin, Suzuki, Tapsi around the Suzuki Chizoran, Pastona, some niti, some chashi at the Troatangeroa. Then you try the country Landaroa. Tangansunam Juni, Nintop, the Wani Popa, the Tikol, Kijashi, Shego Tangansunam Juni. Inele some Nuya Postao and Nangasu Umilam Lemba something and so Nintop the Tis Shumia Marel and Troachic Tayati Roa. And the Troani Pati, Kundu Shizuki, Lankanet Tishroa, Suganel Kepamindu. And the Nechana Kashmir Latan, the Netanchi Chungure, Kashmir Kagaki Gola, Tanda di Ransi Rancho Chan, the Lotu Julila Deure. Inelo Hopka like Gaga, Mamsu Shunji Giroa. Nesundi Chaya, Jetoya, Loho Jileticos, Jamila Natsuki Katsus, Ichite Tureta. And draw the time, and dig out some sort of which you will Neshkirosna to ship.
lade ta tuwa da mindu rowa danda ji jana di benjo ki tone shukchang bichi sa da jingone topchen kiegab ki ya zuyu che ane gyulam chik da lam chik da kare ni chik lab che rowa di ki zamli mabu shukyen tegi duwa dinde ko ane samdang ma ina ngone nganzo kalso gore rawa mebar bichi da simshu chebe ne an lakwa da danda kirang bezon di chu da ume lam ki chebe di simshu chaya chak mara si sung samsang ni kono temen rowa 단디 소소 공부 시절라 레그레 something도 와 앞에 나가로 차샤비나 가서 그래 결합 룩주 토네 배다 랑zen 바 켈링 그 랑zen 전에 뭐네 전에 선반 남다지 하신 고신 아니 배 남자 되면 지금 되게 될이야 얘기 90 지구요 와 이는 가랑 계획은 차샤비나 아니 세메시바 우면 람그 토네 된대 탑주 중에 기다 섬을 당에 치러와 나를 차샤면 디링도 블레기도 와 라와 배 머시기 가서 그래 만주 그 우면 람세게 람까지기 민마르다 코페 때문에 저는 날랜드 밴드 주든이 집에 따와 쉬우죠 봐라 우면 람서 옛날에 공도 샤죠 요래 제상 등산 점벌링이 나야 초니가 삼로다네 애니 때문에 가서 선반남다 지기 와 식지 쉬우죠 와 오늘 전에 여랍 주상선의 민도 오늘 아주 식지 오메스의 민도 오늘 전에 지기 로아 아이는 카지를 디스임주 차 마시브 말와 소소 따와 가가로와 제상 딱 한지 소도 디레 상기도 소소소 닝도 깨야 돼. 군주 남주 디가는 것도 와. 아주 별 미리디 내라빈이 말와. 다 단단 아주 계랍 룩주 나리야. 년다진 시부질래 말어 지기. 아주 원에 전에 최근 매별 남수 그 뒤에 이내래. 그러봐. 아니 오늘 전에 다 지삼로 마무스타면 미리 내라비 교네 말어. 저는 반 아랍이 차샤만 게르와. 가장 뒤도 다 등에 쉬우셔는 심주바 차스스와. 그러나 당분간 아리 지지 쉐다라만 저기 가서 그랬다 긴진 수업으로 와. 제 아니면 긴지 속도를 주고 안 삼블링을 야직 침을 왔다면 바르마다 이라도 봐. 계속 시도가 배배 삼을 내기도 와. 배바 잡주지 때로와. 아니 가도 있는 아주 직 중만서 가서 로바 고고도 가서 두 개를 지켜 되게 그러죠. 뭐래? 맞아. 다 피게 주도 가는 양아미 아메리카 미세로 와. 이게 비미지로 와. 지금 아리 슝고 구저로 와. 미세 미군에 전에 배때 얘가 우리 먹고 가제 냠도 죄만 난 것도 와. 삼려 나리야. 닝도 줄리기도 와. 현사사부 시부지를 소소 예갑지 예외에 지시면 미지동대로와 셈나리야 오늘 전에 나 니네 삼로 니 심중 팔말 리기도 와 아직 오늘 소소 예갑 때문에 탑저제 침을 해샤 소소를 니네 예외이나 그러봐 오늘 전에 지 미나 미지생에 닝도보다 믹스시 리기도 좀 증거들어와 그래서 다지 러와 유에다 매다 세간에 소소 그 공과 시저다 아직 망고 시부지 갑정 내줄 라 레그레서 마도지기 미상말로 러와 찍고 여바다 러와 냠 러바다 진짜 여러 좀 증면 둘러와 다지시
You know, the issue is not just about trust. You know, can we trust China, or like, these are more based on emotions. You know, it should be based. Question that you ask should be based on international norms and international law. This is a rule-based order that the world has established, and China has agreed to by joining institutions like the UN, by establishing bilateral relations with other countries. So instead of saying, can we trust China, the question should be, is China following the very rules that it agreed to, right? Or are those rules being violated? And what should we do to address those violations? For example, China always uses the UN Charter to justify its sovereignty. But if you read the UN Charter further on, what it says that the country should also be respecting people's self-determination rights, as well as there's also non-discrimination obligations. But China conveniently ignores those parts of the UN Charter. Now, is that allowed, right? That's like having your, like that's saying you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? So how you frame the question is really important to the answer that you're gonna get. And what, under international law, the right to self-determination says, the leading case for self-determination is a case by the Supreme Court dealing with the rights of the Quebecois, the province of Quebec. What it said, what the court decided is that if a group of people is oppressed, systematically oppressed, then they have the right to self-determination. Now, we can provide objective evidence of continued and systematic oppression of the Tibetan people by the Chinese government. So it's not a question about can we trust them or can we not trust them. It should be about, are they following international law, international rules? And if they're not, they should be held accountable.
Thank you.
지워 타마디.
To your second question, I think the Kashmiri issue, I'm not an expert. I just want to offer an opinion. I think I don't work for the CTA, but from what I see, I think as CTA, we're in a host nation, and in the way we build allies, we have to be strategic, and that means sometimes speaking some things and not talking about certain things because they might have long-term implications for our people who are here, right? But from individual standpoint, because for me, because I identify as belonging to a country that was colonized at the same time as Palestine, I see Palestinian as my brothers and sisters. I'm allied with, right? And just like that, in the same manner, I see Kashmiri self-determination and the fact that Kashmiris have become a footnote in their own self-determination as problematic. And the action I take, I is my own. And I try to go to protests. I think protests are still very helpful. I try to sign petitions. I try to be an ally, whatever that might mean to you. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on just a bit about what we've seen from China, right? When we talk about whether they actually uphold what they have said, I think Tashi Wangchuk is a perfect example, right? Tashi Wangchuk had asked for language rights, and actually if you look at certain parts of their own constitution where they refer to Tibetans as ethnic minorities, they actually ensure that ethnic minorities, quote unquote, have the right to speak their language, an education in their language. And Tashi Wangchuk didn't ask for any more than that, and yet he's still serving a multi-year prison sentence. I mean, I think those are very evident cases of the reality of what it means to be Tibetan inside of Tibet right now, what it means for us to be people's voices to speak out against the atrocities of the Chinese government. And I think it's really important that we do that. And I also think that sometimes there's this like urgency for us to all know where our political stance lies when it comes to internally, whether you're Umilam, Rongzin, and I get this all the time, that you should know right now, and which team are you on it? I don't think it's about that. I think it's a process, right? We can learn, we can still research, we can read more, and it can be, it can be a lifelong thing, and things can change. And I also thank Yangla for bringing up self-determination, because I don't think that's spoken about enough. It's not the same thing as Rongzin Umilam, I don't think it is, but I do think it is very important to our discussion of who we are as Tibetans, who we are as Tibet.
Hello. Ni chwa di dana nga zu pebe da shungi ni zo yakwa cha la nga zu ki shin thola ya investment che di hansan ke chimbore. Ta ne le ngi ki ta pu din zo dina chungi thön de chamba da tholo thari thase la ta da ta tholo la de do son tang ro. Ani tholo khase la lo chi la lo bin tik gu. Andi ka su nang ki ni ya rokpa che thoya mar shas. Ya chige la bed 야 그는 몸 줍든 이슈장 안에 니때 두두 어딘이 좋아할 칸에나 아주 능미 쪽이 부국이 시엔톨라 이메스멘 제딩이 노두 성들어 신기 망고치 it's between 20 and 30 로 이슈도 순주바라 시기도 용원이 차더래 혼자 항상 배 파진 내가 친 찾아래 문제라 갑자기 야차베 시엔톨라야 안디기 아주 배배기 능미 된줄라야 시엔도 기침보 인백이 기 면조로 통스러 제정이기 좋아디 군주도 말라리 교남군이 진짜기 칼로르가 주기 직직게라 도야라 돌로 가래디 야기 흰골 찌찌도 이슈장한 제 디기 딕 틸랍자도 람텐도 그 딕도 드민도 직라야라
약라 군주도 말라래 군주도 말 그러래 니라 군주도 봤어
군주로만 양라래
lapcha de ta khash tara sangi ya chimla tu le na nge de lapcha to gya ran so ondi chi machung na anju di we have sorry tanga le inke ton gya chu chi sra de phege gya ngara ngara she sa gya ngo so su ri ngara ngara we have some of our
youngsters from our community who, spend a lot of money to go abroad. And then our friends abroad are telling them, don't come, you're gonna spend like 10, 20 years paying that money off. Just stay in India and establish yourself there. And, it's not what you think, life in the West is not what you think it is unless you have the skills, the necessary skills and the level of education required to excel there. But there, I'm very careful about my words here. I think that education that you receive here or in the West, I think they're both the same. It starts with you, and it doesn't mean that you have to go to like some Ivy League in the U.S. I was educated at CSD Bailukupi, and level of education I received there was, it helped me tremendously when I went to Canada. And that's because I had some really great teachers. And, you may think my Tibetan's not so good, but our teacher was amazing. Like, he would spend time reading every single word with us just so we learned Tibetan. But it's just that maybe I wasn't a good student, But if I'd taken advantage of the resources available to me as a Tibetan student at CSD, then I would have, really excelled in my skills. So, it really comes down to you as an individual and what you do to acquire the skills, the education. Because once you have that, it's no matter where you go in the world, it can be taken away, right? That's all I want to say. I'm not labja dindita gyadu samare.
That Yagla Kunjo, Joma, Shumba, Chuma, the shed, Yagla Kunjo, Joma, Chasha. That the Labja Nege shooting with the Wanga machine, Mill Labja, so Labja Lango and Medirova. Then in a ditch, Yabudu some with that. Lobjon, ya, the same none, draw down as a previous in a rot that you soon do this, so young good one. This is a Mary in a Yagada, they see it in a young one. Larua. Tapen an Arab charge out of what? Mapping Mirgan charge America Chimberta. Mali do lost some summer. Pamapunja Suga Yomare. Boguton Yare. Rava, Tango Shuguma didn't Loma Bogu or Pepanashi Sangma. In an art, you should give you to give us a church, that got you said the Sassatons as that Last Yomaro. In a that day, Loma Bocare Jamera, and in every miser said to come and Ari and Arishun, we are the one. We pinch some she was young and Lord you love John Cheverwa. I'm going to meet you the Carriers of that. The America love John Cocaji Lebre, that my she's on that. So the Kerkit on the Tibet on the that did one attack against the one. Chitokania Tata Sinzeli and Goma, Jumbo to Wamidwa, Tango you have and Piga let you go love John Test, which and young the one which Coca and the Tata Sinzeli Gochi, and chick shoe chick you, Robert Chenteta, Rochomarua. Pull up, put the woman and two to make Karacho over there, Kashomalagomada. Or do they see any Miguel Lardua? On the top of the Miricua. She gave him the Palmas of Lau Maricana to the shame of John Dollar Shibson to Yorba. Just you see Palme and Coca and Chichi Levina. The Lubrian chair, Coca, I to Susan Table with one. That matter of Chashan that a lot of not pullented and the Pulis Higher. You give him in Durova. The Lobjon Chumbre, Mingne Chumbre, Rava, and it means Cogomni Chumbre, and Kayada just says to Edorva. And yet, like you have missions not because the case like Marwa, Pulu. Marwa, a machine in Galega Tigro, and me. Says that Susan seems to rally the mother jig, and none of us in the rock and Marwa, Tata young somebody near Zintatic with this Lord Chip, you should have not parking each other, Losum Songa. Senior Losum now Lord Chip to go to the Shushangarwa. Just right. That's a mean Mongol lover of Carriage of Lobson to much in the Lobson Lodge. That Carriage is Lobson. What else the Tamache de Jero? I Lobson and Tamajan and Rosama. That's you long a professor that means to Zero. I get quite young, some which we cared a lot. Eat a chicken America. Duh. That's she there. Our whole life of the Russian Hagodua. Like you do watching a Yomara, Rene, Yomara Punoyan, Dogo, and Nana Togno, Pampuja, Yomara, Minim Begin, just a near chet to do, I cannot some of the other Lotus in Yalang, Cheturoda, Teramanset Moneta. 제가 디스임 좀 맞아 저 소소시에 계신 분들 자സം 그러와 파마도 미 샤발 이야기 디 게네테 미도 나 다디 군조 좀 야라 개바 그 잡젠다 어디
tanda lerim di juk moti gone nga di ji shudu shungsu tanda pime ko la lengme mamush lesra ani tanda nga zu nga da ngab jugi chongdu chashana ani ta puda pomogi thanga di chanyo myongwe gender representation la nga zu gi beze mangbuchi ani soja wa chana ge gyajang ngab ju ngab ju doji yore peje ani dangi lo china tamshin nge manga pime re ani thalo tamshin nge nyunga pime insa tanda 레규 거지 조경와 줘라 모더레이터 참아 가지고 비밀 강전 샤일은 쉬어이 아니 드링 tam시기레 숨바 주시 비밀 라완 탑지 나셔남 길랭게 이간이 기 델람 대신 슈둑타 길지 델람 기 소두디 두바이 아니 tam시난게 상마다 소자와 용라 아니 투치나 슈규인 Sirajidu this year tanda azugi grand amountage page yora hundi chigegi soja wanam tanda nam ticket yora air ticket the boarding pass kine phage tanda azugi dex chi yore kisi nam mena khaya mara nam yin zo phage la submit naro na nam yin zo na digire tuchna